Day 4 of making my first pixel platformer. When I opened the project today, I wasn't planning to build anything particularly exciting. The goal was mostly to improve the transition between levels. Up until now, whenever the player reached the exit and moved to the next level, the game would just instantly switch scenes. Technically, it worked, but visually it felt a bit abrupt. There was no sense that the player was actually traveling somewhere new. So I started working on a simple transition effect. It's not a full loading screen, but it's something that makes the game feel more polished. I added a black screen transition and spent some time coding it so that moving between levels feels more intentional. Thankfully, I was following a tutorial for this part, so everything went pretty smoothly. Sometimes game development feels like that. One day you're fighting bugs for hours, and another day you make progress without much resistance. After finishing the transition effect, I moved on to the main feature I wanted to work on today: moving platforms. I was following the tutorial again, but this time I noticed something interesting. The tutorial creator animated the platform using 3 keyframes, one at the start, another at the destination, and then a final keyframe that instantly moved the platform back to its original position before looping the animation. It worked, but I remembered learning something from another Godot video a while ago. Godot already has a built-in option that can automatically ping-pong an animation back and forth. Instead of manually resetting the platform to its starting position, I could simply set a starting keyframe, set an ending keyframe, enable the looping option, and let the engine handle the rest. So that's what I did. It's a small thing, but moments like that feel rewarding. Not because it's a huge achievement, but because it reminds me that I'm actually learning. Every now and then I run into a situation where I can solve a problem differently than the tutorial. Those moments make me feel like I'm slowly becoming less dependent on copying steps and more capable of understanding why things work. Once the platform animation was working, I started placing them into the level. At first, everything looked fine. The platforms moved back and forth exactly as expected. And honestly, that's where most people would probably stop. But I wasn't really happy with it. The platforms all moved at the same speed. They were perfectly synchronized. They felt predictable. And for some reason, that bothered me. When I looked at the level, it felt less like a dangerous obstacle course and more like a machine following a script. So I started thinking about how I could make it feel a little more alive, a little more chaotic, a little more annoying, mostly annoying. Using Gemini, I put together some code that gives each platform a random speed. Instead of every platform moving together like a marching band, each one now has its own rhythm. Some move faster, some move slower. Immediately, the level felt more interesting. But then I had another idea. What if the platforms didn't always stay there? What if players couldn't completely trust them? So I added a system that gives each platform a chance to disappear and reappear during gameplay. At first, the chance was 40%. Then I tested it. And honestly, it wasn't evil enough. So I increased it to 60%. Now the platforms randomly vanish while the player is trying to cross the level. I'm not sure whether future players will appreciate this decision. Actually, I'm pretty sure they won't. But that's part of the fun. Of course, getting all of this working wasn't as simple as writing a few lines of code and moving on. There was a fair amount of debugging involved. Some things didn't behave the way I expected. Others worked halfway. A few things broke entirely. The usual game development experience. Eventually, though, I managed to get everything working together. The platforms now move at different speeds. They're no longer synchronized. They disappear and reappear randomly, and the whole level feels much less predictable than before. After that, I spent some time cleaning up the level itself. I adjusted platform placements, added more coins, added more snails, and tried to create situations where the player has to make quick decisions instead of simply memorizing a path. The snails themselves are already a little chaotic because of a feature I added earlier. Every now and then they get a sudden speed boost and rush toward the player. Watching that happen alongside the disappearing platforms creates some genuinely funny moments. 1 second, everything is fine. The next second, the platform disappears, a snail decides it's training for the Olympics, and the player is suddenly questioning all of their life choices. By the end of the session, level 3 was finally complete. It's probably the most unpredictable level in the game so far. Moving platforms, random speed, disappearing platforms, aggressive snail, and hopefully a few moments that make players laugh right before they fail a jump. Looking back, I think my favorite part of today wasn't actually finishing the level. It was noticing that I could solve a problem differently than the tutorial. I'm still learning, I'm still following guides, but every now and then I catch myself making decisions on my own, changing systems, experimenting with ideas, and shaping the game into something that feels a little more personal. And I think that's a good sign. Tomorrow, we'll see what new problems I accidentally create for myself.